Hi, welcome back to the channel.
So we're doing something a little bit differently now. Coming up we've got a 3-part series which is based around a Land Rover themed holiday which me and my friend Ravi are going on. So the plan is, this is part 1 which you're currently watching. I'm just on my way to pick up Ravi from Bristol. So once we've done that, we're going to have a nice drive across the Cotswolds, going to Gaydon in Warwickshire, where we're going to a British Motor Museum to have a look at the Jaguar Land Rover exhibits there, as it's right next to the Jaguar factory at Gaydon. Following that, we'll be travelling to Solihull, where we're having a night in a hotel. And tomorrow, which will be part 2, we're going to the Land Rover Factory in Solihull, where we're going to be having a tour. Following that, we're travelling to Cheshire, to Peckforton Castle, which is where Land Rover have an off-road experience, and we'll be doing that in part 3. So I'm just going to leave you now. We've got a little bit of travel along the A30 as we leave Cornwall and head across Devon. We're then going to go into Somerset, pick up Ravi from Bristol, and I'll check back in with you then. So not really very interesting driving to start with, just the A30, which is a dual carriageway, and then the M5 motorway. So just picked Ravi up. First stop on our tour of the Cotswolds going to be Burford. So we've just arrived into Burford. Range Rover actually made a limited edition, long wheelbase SV edition, quite recently in 2024. It's a Burford edition. We'll put some photos of that up on the screen now. So it just made sense to stop here on our Land Rover themed holiday. As you can see, it's a beautiful car, finished in a satin ether grey colour. The interior is finished in light cloud and cinder grey fabrics, which Land Rover say are a luxury alternative to leather. Leaving Burford, we resumed our journey across the Cotswolds, heading to the British Motor Museum in Gaydon. The British Motor Museum is really amazing, with exhibitions from a number of different British manufacturers. This is the Land Rover one, including this tracked Land Rover Cuthbertson, and a number of different models as well. This Range Stormer concept car was really cool to see. It was introduced in 2004 and started like the revolution of sporty SUVs. The Range Rover Sport was introduced shortly after this. It's got a V8 supercharged engine and the doors open like a Lamborghini. This was probably the wackiest Land Rover which we saw there. It doesn't really look like a Land Rover, but it was developed for the 1995 film Judge Dredd. There were a number of different Land Rovers which were owned by the royal family. This Series 1 is finished in the royal colour of claret, and it has a platform on the back where the royal family were able to sit and address the crowds. Located in a building next to the main museum, it's almost like a warehouse. They've got Land Rovers and lots of different British cars just crammed in. It's really quite incredible to see. This is one of the highlights. It's quite cool. It's a lightweight concept vehicle released by Land Rover due to rising fuel prices and emissions regulations. It looks pretty much like a Defender, but it's a lot more rounded. This was really amazing to see as well. It's being created by the Land Rover SV division, and it's actually a fully amphibious Land Rover. So if you have a look at the back of the car, you can see it's got a rudder to help it steer when it's in the water. As a James Bond fan, I was really excited to see this smashed up Land Rover Defender 110 because it was used in the film Skyfall. So they took it to Istanbul and it was featured in the chase scene filmed there. But of course, the absolute highlight of the museum is this Hue 166. It's the first Land Rover Series 1 to roll off the production line. It was bought by a farmer, with Land Rover later buying it back from him. So as the sun set, we left the British Motor Museum to head to our hotel in Solihull, ready for our tour of the Land Rover factory the following day, which will be in our part 2 video. Okay, so it's day 2. Just had a nice night's sleep in Birmingham, and we're heading to the Jaguar Land Rover factory in Solihull now for the tour. Having arrived at the Solihull site, it was amazing how large it was. They have their own fire department, nursery and social club. Having arrived at the factory, we were led into this room where we waited and were offered a coffee and pastry. I noticed this steel Range Rover on the shelf, which sells for £350 on the Land Rover website. We headed off into one of these Defender 147. It's one of only 11 original vehicles in the world. There were 4 of us in our group, us 2 and 2 others from Australia. Our first stop was a body shop, where we witnessed 70 robots working together to create the bodies out of aluminium and boron steel. It was an amazing sight to see. Following this, we arrived here at the Kingmakers exhibition. Over here they had a little exhibit of what was around in the 1960s, just to give you an idea of what was happening in the UK at that time. In this display case, they had a number of different tools used in the development of the Range Rover, including original blueprints and sketches. Along the wall were people who were involved with the development of it. Moving on, we were able to see an original Velar badge, which was the secret code name of the Range Rover, so competitors didn't know it was being developed by Land Rover, and so didn't pay it much attention. They also had original documents from the development of the first Range Rover. Moving into the second section, we were able to learn about the new Range Rover. We were also able to have a sit inside the first new Range Rover to roll off the production line. As you can see, it's really luxurious inside. After the Kingmakers exhibition, we moved into the final assembly building, which was really good to see. There were over 700 members of staff fitting parts to the cars as they moved along a conveyor belt. Leaving the factory, we saw this car transporter with some of the newest Range Rovers being shipped off around the world. We're just heading to Cheshire now. So we were supposed to be stopping the night at Peckforton Castle, which is where the off-road experience is tomorrow, but they phoned us up to say that there's no water at the hotel. So we've been moved to a different hotel. We'll have to see how that is. It's just mostly motorway driving there along the M6. Having arrived at Nunsmere Hall, we headed into our room where we had a quick shower and got ready for dinner, which we had here in the restaurant. I had steak for dinner, which was just beautiful, with this orange gatto for dessert. We went for a quick couple of drinks in the bar before heading back to the room for the night, looking forward to the off-road experience the following day, which you'll be able to see in part 3 of our series. Having got up ready for a day of off-roading, we went to breakfast, which comprised of a full English along with a continental. So we're just leaving the hotel which we stayed in last night. Plan for today is a trip to Chester. We'll have a look around there for an hour, and then we're going to head to Peckforton Castle, which is where the Land Rover off-road experience is. Having looked around Chester, we headed off to Peckforton Castle, which was a really nice drive with beautiful views of Beeston Castle in the background. Arriving at Peckforton Castle, we headed into the Land Rover reception area and had a quick coffee before we began our off-road experience. After an initial bit of off-road driving, we arrived at our first obstacle, which was a steep decline into water, followed by a steep incline out of it.
Everything off pedals, keep right off, straight on, keep off pedals, don't touch anything, let the car go down. Nicely done. Perfect, and then you just feather the accelerator now. Take control off hill descent. Just get a little bit more momentum. A little bit more. That's it. Perfect. Just keep that going now.
We then moved on to our next obstacle, which was a deep and quite long ford. We then moved on to our next obstacle, which is known as the Broken Bridge.
This is a little bit deceptive, this now. Joe, we call this the Broken Bridge because it's broken and it looks like a bridge. But you've almost got to walk the car over. You'll feel it under the wheels because there's quite a gap between those sleepers. Yeah.
Having tackled this, we then moved on to the next challenge, a steep side slope.
My tyre there, you know your tyres are okay, right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice and slow. Over to you a little bit now. That's it, keep that line. Let's see what angle we're at now. 21 degrees, 22 degrees, 23 degrees, 25 degrees. Just feather the accelerator now. You've got control, you've taken control back off. With the same control, off we go, we're off to the right.
On our way to the next obstacle, we were rudely interrupted by some unexpected guests.
These pheasants?
Yeah.
Having narrowly avoided the pheasants, it was time for Ravi to take the wheel. Ravi's first obstacle was a water crossing on quite a sharp bend to the left.
So your line on this is straight down the middle. It's quite undulated underneath. It's quite rough underneath. You'll feel it as we go through.
Having completed this, there was some more, quite deep water for Ravi to wade through. And after this, guess what? Even more water for Ravi. Next up was a slight pause from the off-roading to have a look and admire some beautiful views.
So these root systems on your right now, again, just use the camera, get yourself close to this edge, and you'll see them all disappear down the side. Another one coming here now. That's it, keep that line, perfect. Brilliant, these cameras.
Next up is possibly one of the coolest things we did while off-roading. This is where we cross-axle the Defender. So during this time the front left wheel and the rear right wheel are completely off the ground.
To you, Taj. That's it. Keep it going. And a little bit more to you now, so we're kind of getting lined up now for the top of the next side slope. A little bit more to you. That wheel now is pretty much off the ground. That's going to come completely off the ground in a second. now completely suspended, so if you look at that, turn your wheel's completely in midair. You cross-axle the car. So again, if you were in your old Defender now, you're going anywhere. You put your foot down, that wheel and that wheel, they're just going to spin and spin and spin and spin and spin.
Exactly.
Unbelievable, isn't it? So all you've got to do is just gently take your foot off, and the car's going to, you'll feel the nose drop down. So you're again there now. Completely suspended, and then we'll drop down. There you go.
After this, we headed to the most hardcore part of the track. This is called the Old Quarry.
That's it. And then just feather the accelerator now as you feel us slow down. Just before you do turn left.
The quarry was home to the steepest descent of the day, known as the King's Drop.
So keep going, 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 keep going. A little bit more. And then straighten up and just edge forward now. Just keep going. A little bit of a slide there. And then feather the accelerator and round the corner we go.
Ravi then turned right to tackle these large mounds.
To you a little bit now. That's it, keep that line. And then follow the curve. Keep turning, turn. And then we're going to drop over the other side now. Straighten back up again now. Perfect. And then just take us a car, well, 2 car lengths further on, and then Joe will do that second drop. And you can have a go, yeah. Good driving. Thank you. Spot on.
We then swapped over, allowing me a chance to tackle the King's Drop before we headed back home. The experience really demonstrated the capabilities of the new Defender. The electrical assists were just amazing, like hill descent control was really useful, and so were the cameras. You know, whereas in an old Defender, you would have to power through to overcome obstacles, the new Defender allows you to tackle them in a slow and controlled way. So I'm just leaving the hotel that I stayed at last night. Just on the way back to Cornwall. The GoPros all ran out of battery yesterday because we used them so much during the off-road experience, but yeah, it's just been an absolutely amazing 3 days. You know, the museum at Gaydon, the Solihull Factory Tour, and the off-roading experience in Cheshire hotel was really nice as well. So yeah, it's been amazing and really sad that it's come to an end.